Hello, it's nice to be back again. Today we have the pleasure of being joined by Shane O'Reilly. Shane is a family member of O'Reilly's who run the Rainforest retreat in Queensland. Shane's CEO, Managing Director. Shane, welcome welcome to the latest of our interviews.
Thank you, Simon.
No, quite all right. Look, it's always a pleasure to talk under these unusual times. Unusual times. Shane, to start with, do you want to just give us a little bit of background for those who haven't heard of O'Reilly's? Give me a little bit of background about the place and your family's connection to the location.
Sure. The O'Reillys came up here in 1911 from the Blue Mountains, actually, in west of Sydney, and took up selection. This whole area was supposed to be a huge dairying community, and they bought 8 blocks of land, 100 acres each, five brothers and three cousins. And amazingly, or maybe it's good to know that even the governments changed their mind back in 1911, because even though they had it open and said when there were 100 blocks taken, they'd put a road through. The O'Reillys bought these 8 blocks, and then the government within a period of months withdrew the land from selection and said, "Oh, we've changed our mind. We're not going to make it a dairying community anymore and put a road through. We're going to make it a national park." And the O'Reillys, of course, had already bought their land and wanted to leave, but the government negotiated with them as a group, and being sort of Irish descent and related, there was little chance of them agreeing on the day of the week, let alone a resale price. So long and short of it, they ended up staying and opened a guest house in Easter of 1926, and it's been family owned and run ever since.
Now, I had the pleasure of meeting Pete when I was last there. So, what relation is he to you again? And when did he appear on the scene in that history?
Well, he's the second generation, so he was born in 1933. Yeah, and he's my father, and he was out west, jackarooing actually, and O'Reilly's went through probably a tumultuous period, uh, and uh, and my grandfather, who had left the business, came back and joined them in the late 40s, and essentially bought the company from it had been listed, an unlisted public company, and he went round and bought all the shares back from the public owners as well as the family. And then he rang up his two sons. One was a Vince, a fitter and turner in Brisbane, and my father at Jackaroo West, and told them to come home because he needed workers, and he needed workers he could trust, and needed workers he probably didn't have to pay too much to. And they came back and they ran the business, and they continued running the business right through their retirement in the late 90s, actually.
And I came to O'Reilly's for the first time about 6 years ago. I met Pete, and we did a short film with him about the Canopy Walkway. Now, when that was built, I think it's probably getting on for 31 years ago that was built now. So I won't ask you what age that would have made you at the time, but you'd have been a young boy when that happened. I've got a bit of video of Pete here, but do you want to just talk us through how the process and how that and how that started?
Yeah, well, it was in '87 that was done, but Dad always said that his idea was to get up into the canopy of the trees where there's most of the fruit of the rainforest trees are. There's a whole range of birds that live at that height which don't come down to the ground. So his idea was to get up in the canopy of the trees and see the rainforest at that level. And I know one of the people who helped him said Pete always said it as a joke, but then no one realised he was taking it seriously, and he went along and built the thing. And really, as far as we know, it's still no one's disputed the fact it was the first canopy walk built in the world. And we had people coming from South America, from North America, from different areas of Asia, coming to look at our treetop walk when it was first built, and trying to see how it was going and what changes they could make to them. And of course, they made the ones they're all over the place now, but they're mostly made of steel. Of course, this one wasn't. It was wood, and it moved around, so there's a lot of wear and tear and maintenance on it. I think the new steel ones are probably a much smarter idea.
31 years and not a single tree's fallen over it, so which must say something. But I think it was also very, and I remember that's what Pete told me anyway.
No, it's true. It's
Yeah.
probably very good luck, I'd say. It's nothing else.
Well, and it was an earlier form of crowdfunding as well, predated crowdfunding, because I think you sold timbers to
That's
help
right.
other.
People could have their name put on the walkway, and if they donated money to the Natural History Association, who it was built on our land. We tried to build it. Dad tried to build it on National Park actually, but of course the National Park wouldn't allow it. So he put it on our land. However, it was always done through the Natural History Association because they could access more funds, and then they get all the donations. So, and 30 years later, they're still getting the donations every week from the treetop walk because it's free to walk on, unlike 98% of them now around Australia and the world. It's still free, and money you donate goes back to the Natural History Association of Leamington National Park, and what work they can do.
So I didn't realise that. That's really important, and it's an important point to note that yeah, you can drive up to O'Reilly's from Brisbane, and there's no obligation other than to park in the car park. There's a cafeteria and things to do, but you can use those boardwalks. You can go on that Canopy Walkway and visit any time you like and use the facilities and enjoy yourself there, and which is quite wonderful.
Yeah, well, that's true. You can park and go for a full day's walk with magnificent waterfalls and views, do the treetop walk, and get back in your car, and it hasn't cost you a cent.
Just describe the landscape a bit for me while we have a look at it.
Oh well, obviously it's the Gondwana rainforest, and beautiful subtropical right out to the Antarctic beech forest. They're magnificent out on the border of New South Wales and Queensland, which is like another 1,000 feet higher in the old score from where we are here. And those trees are remnants from the Gondwana period when Australia were connected to Antarctica and New Zealand, and they've carbon dated the roots of some of these trees and said they're in excess of 30,000 years.
It's absolutely remarkable. Let's leap forward to today. You can't have a business in a place like that as long as you guys have without facing many challenges. Tell me, you had a cyclone a few years ago which posed one. How does that compare to the challenges you're facing today?
Yes, well, that was our anniversary was yesterday actually of exactly 3 years since our road reopened after Cyclone Debbie, or rain depression Debbie as it was when it got to us. But yeah, our road was closed for 5 weeks for the first time really ever, and we thought that was a tough period. But we still had a convoy in every day and a convoy out every day, which we'd negotiated with the main roads department, and they allowed that. And so we still traded, we still kept all our staff, and it was a tough 5 weeks, but it was probably a tough whole year really, because there was so much work going on our mountain road for a period of another year, almost a year and a half. It was certainly disrupted our trade. We weren't allowed to have any buses up of any type, and even driving up, you sometimes could stop for 5 and 6 times. And that just finished all that long ago, and we thought we were sort of having some clear air, and we've come across a whole lot of bushfires in southeast Queensland, and now this. So it's we've sort of had enough challenges. We'd like a bit of quiet time, actually, really.
I think we all agree with that. But you did tell me that there's one of the things, I guess, that if we look on the bright side slightly, it does provide other opportunities. And I asked you yesterday about what you're doing on site at the moment. You told me a very lovely story about your current staff and what's been happening, and how you might look back on this as a quite a fantastic period.
Yeah, well, I suppose that's the outcome of what you'd hope for. But we have 70 odd staff who live here. Nearly half of them, 32, are international staff. And now they are here on, permanent work visas, but for, whatever reasons, they are not able to access job seeker. They're not allowed to be on the job keeper wage, so they can't get any wages at all, really, or any financial support. And the government says they need to go home. Well, it's fairly challenging to go home in this current environment. There's not many flights. They're fairly expensive. Countries aren't necessarily taking people back, and you're talking about fairly low skilled people who are not necessarily at the top end of the wage scale. And frankly, the vast majority just can't afford it. So we've given them free accommodation and free food. We've not much choice. We've got to give them, all our staff, free accommodation, free food, and so the international ones are just sort of helping out, doing a bit of volunteering, and our other staff are on the job keeper wage, and they're doing a few days a week. And so they're painting and gardening and cleaning, and it's for a resort that's been operating for as long as we have. Yes, it's probably an opportunity to take a breath, step back, and really give the place a big clean out. Look at what you're doing, and painting wise, redo all the gardens. It's sort of quite a nice little break, I suppose, as long as we're not breaking for too long. And when we reopen, people still have some money and interest in holidaying in the rainforest, which I'm sure they will.
Look, it does. I'm sure you'll be absolutely the case. It sounds like an intriguing time for you. So just to finish off. When people are able to travel again, and they are able to visit, we've already said they can come to our rallies at any time. Just let's have a quick look and get you to talk about the wildlife, in particular the birds that they would see on a visit to you.
Yeah, well, Raleigh's is well known for birding. Our, bird. We have two bird weeks a year, an autumn one and the one in the beginning of summer, and they're becoming more popular, not less. And again, my father started that exercise, and it's the longest running bird week in Australia, and still with numbers in around the 60 and 70 mark. It's probably still the biggest, I'm guessing, as far as I know. And people come who are really good birdos, and other people come who have never ever watched birds before or looked for birds, and they're just come because it's of interest to them. It's 7 days of a focus that's all inclusive, and they not only do birds in the rainforest, they do shore birds down on the on off from the Gold Coast on Stradbroke Island, and so they see a lot of, of wildlife that week. And yeah, it's one of our big attractions for international groups, as well as the bird life of OReilly's, and they're all still here, and I'm sure they're maybe enjoying times being a little bit quieter, but I'm sure they'll also enjoy it when everyone returns.
Yeah, I believe so. Um, Shane, it's been absolutely wonderful to speak to you again. Thank you for taking the time to off your your busy schedule. I think you sounds like you're busier than ever, so I really appreciate it, and we'll look forward to chatting again, perhaps at some point in the future. Good luck with it all.
Thanks, Simon. Yes, thank you.
Cheers. Bye bye.